My name is Dwaine Snow. I've been with IBM for 21 years now. Been in the database industry for basically all that time. One of the initial developers on DB2 for LUW. Did a lot of work in the product management team there. Then moved to our lab-based services team, and then focused most recently on competitive analysis. So understanding what not only we're doing, what the industry's doing, but also what I think people like Oracle, Teradata, Microsoft are doing, so that we can best position our solutions against what everybody else is doing in the industry. And now, just recently moved to work on the Netezza product marketing team. So it's been a long journey, but always something interesting to do at IBM, always something, the next thing is always there has always been there for me, and it's been interesting 21 years. I was just out at the Oracle Open World Conference, and they made a bunch of announcements there, and the one that was sort of intriguing, and not necessarily for a good reason, has been their announcement of a big data appliance. And a big data, in their case, what they're looking at doing is using an appliance, which big data is really, it's MapReduce, Hadoop analysis, where you go out and you look at unstructured data, whether that be data from Twitter, from Facebook, from whatever part of the web. They're going out and they're using it, and what their purpose is just push more data into Exadata, push more into their database, sell more of that, and then run the analytics later. And my thought is that, and what I believe that really the true strategy should be, is to push the workload, push the analytics and the work to where the data is. And that's what the IBM strategy is, whether it be our Smart Consolidation or our IBM Big Insights. So IBM Big Insights is our Hadoop offering, and what that does is it pushes the analytics out into the grid, out into that unstructured data, and it acts on the data where the data sits. You don't have to pull it. It's not an ETL tool to go out and find little pieces of interest and then pull it into Exadata and run the analytics later. It's running it as the data is being generated, as you find the data, so you don't have the latency. We heard a lot today in our opening sessions about how analytics is powering huge profits. The people that are using analytics to the biggest advantage are getting to 12x the profit, is what was quoted this morning. And that's the reality of today, is people need to run that analytics, but you don't need to run it after you go out and find little pieces of information that you think are important. You need to run it on the actual data and the full volume of data. And that's where you get the real value, is being able to analyze it and push it to where the data is. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about was in-database analytics. And if you really look at in-database analytics and you look at the marketplace, and I said I did competitive, so I've looked at what everybody's saying. Everybody now claims they do in-database analytics. But the reality is that most other people that are claiming that, their in-database analytics is just SQL analytics. It's min, max, average, sum, what you can get from an average from a SQL statement. The real complex analytics have to be done on an analytics server, whether it be Cognos, SPSS, MicroStrategy, Business Object. What most database systems, other than IBM's Netezza system, do is you run that analytics system on another server. And in order to run the analytics, they go down, they pull the database, they pull a whole bunch of data, massive amounts of data, hundreds of gigabytes, terabytes of data out to the analytics server. And then they run, and they don't run in parallel. They run in an SMP, a serial fashion, on a single server. What the power of Netezza brings is the ability to run complex analytics in the database. They run on the blade. They run as the data streams off disk. So the power of the Netezza appliance is built around the FPGA, Field Programmable Gate Array. So that sits adjacent to the disk drives. And as the data is coming off disk, and again, what Netezza will do is they use a patented technology called a zone map to minimize the amount of data that actually has to read from disk. So it only reads the slices of data where it knows that the value that you're going after might be on that slice. So it will read those slices, and then as the data is just coming off disk, it decompresses it. It will restrict the data. It's going to go only after the columns that are needed, and then it goes only then after the rows are needed. And then once it's minimized that data set, based on your predicates, based on the query that you've written, it will run the analytics right there. It doesn't have to go and pull all the data out to a second server, to another server. So you're not, in a traditional system, whether it be an Oracle or a Teradata, you got to go down, the analytic query comes in, it goes down and starts running on the Oracle system, runs in memory. It makes a call to the I/O system. The I/O starts churning off disk, brings the data into memory on the Oracle database server, and then it has to chug it back out to that analytics server. So data's just going back and forth, moving and moving, where Netezza, only the minimal amount of data comes off the blade after the analytics have already been applied. So it's a game changer, and that's really, if you look at where the industry's going, people talk analytics, but it's really not just being able to run an analytic query. It's what I call train of thought analytics. Because if you issue a query, you look at the result set because it comes back so fast, and you say, well, what if I change it a little bit? Same as when you go into Google. You put in search terms and you say, search. And then you get a big list. You get pages of it. Did you really mean this? But again, you look at what the results are, and maybe you misspelled something. Maybe you want to add another term onto that. So what you find, what the results of the analytic query that you issue and what those results come back as, you then follow those queries to that needle in the haystack. And that's what the speed and the ability to push the analytics to the system to run on the streaming data gives you, versus if you pull all the data out, that takes seconds or minutes. You run a query, and then if you didn't get all the data the first time, you have to go back and pull a bunch more out, and that churning back and forth of the data to that analytic system on other databases other than Netezza means you're not going to be able to get train of thought. You run a query, you go to lunch. You run another query, go to dinner. Run another query, go home. And by the time you get back the next day, you forgot what you were looking for. My name's Dwaine Snow, and if you really want to dig into some of my thoughts, what I'm talking about, I have a couple different blogs, one on netezza.com, where you find a lot of my blogs on the Netezza platform on analytics. I've got another blog that from back in my predecessor days when I used to work on DB2, it's called DSnow on DB2. It's on Blogspot. And I've also got a Twitter account, capital D, W-A-I-N-E, capital S-N-O-W. That's my username on Twitter.